Development Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Hello students, welcome to yet another session on e-learning. This is teacher Nirmala and I shall be continuing with Unit 2 in Secretarial Practice, which deals with the secretarial correspondence with members and directors of the organization. So students, as taught to you in the previous session, the company secretary is one of the most important officer in a joint stock company. He is a middleman, he is an intermediary, he is a license officer between people working within the organization and third parties, outsiders who need to deal with the given joint stock company. In this unit, we focus on two entities, that is the shareholders or owners of the organization and the directors of the organization. So as taught to you in the previous session, we learned the communication between a company secretary on one hand and the members or shareholders or owners of the organization. Well, in today's lecture, in today's class, we will focus on part B of this unit, that is correspondence between a company secretary and directors of the organization. Now, as you know students, the board of directors is like the mind of the joint stock company. It is the board of directors that looks into the planning, decision making, formulation of various policies and execution of the same. In other words, it is the board of directors which looks into the day-to-day functioning or working of the organization. They are the ones who ensure that the money so invested by various investors in the organization is put to the best possible use in the growth, in the progress, in the success of the organization. And here, in helping the board of directors in executing or discharging this important task given to them, we have the company secretary. Yes, it is the company secretary who plays a very vital role, a very important role in assisting, in guiding, in providing legal advice time and again to the board of directors. So as I have said, the company secretary interacts, the company secretary exchanges information with the board of directors on many occasions. Now we shall study the circumstances under which the company secretary communicates or drafts correspondence with directors of the organization. So the first instance, as you see on the slide, is with respect to the appointment of a director. When a person is first invited to act as a member of the board of directors of the organization, he has to be intimated, he has to be informed in writing, that's right. So the secretary is the one who drafts a letter and sees that it is sent or given to the director with respect to his appointment. Thereafter, when a director retires, the same needs to be communicated. His services need to be appreciated, he needs to be thanked for. And with this respect also, the company secretary drafts correspondence to the directors. And the third thing is, in case the director has not been providing his services so as to help the organization, or the director has committed something very grave which is against the interest of the shareholders and the organization, it may result in the disqualification of that director. So, the third instance is with respect to the removal, disqualification, the need for the director to vacate his position as a director. So, that was the first instance wherein the secretary drafts correspondence to directors, that is with respect to the appointment, retirement or disqualification of the concerned director. The second instance, as you see on the slide, is with regards to the purchase of qualification shares by people appointed as directors. Okay? Next, whenever a board meeting is convened, whenever there is a meeting of the board of directors and a board meeting is to be convened, it is the company secretary who drafts the letter, the notice, the agenda with respect to this board meeting. Next, in case a director has remained absent for a certain number of meetings of the board of directors, he may have to face certain action under the provisions of the Companies Act. So, in this respect, when a director has remained absent, maybe even with the permission of the chairperson, a certain action may be called against him, and this needs to be communicated by means of a letter. The fifth point is when a director is supposed to disclose his personal interest in a given contract or agreement with the company. Okay? Over here again, the secretary communicates by means of a letter with the director. And lastly, whenever the director is in need, he requires certain information, or whenever a director requires certain documents, okay, for the purpose of reference, for the purpose of decision making, he may require the company secretary to provide the same to him. So, in this respect, again, the company secretary communicates or needs to draft correspondence to the directors of the organization. Okay, students? So, these are the instances, these are the circumstances, or these are the situations under which a company secretary communicates, corresponds with the board of directors. Now, here students, you can get a 3-mark question or a 2-mark question. Suppose the question asks or requires you to mention or state the conditions or circumstances under which the director and the company secretary communicate, then you, for 2 marks you got to write 4 points, and for 3 marks you have to write 6 points. But suppose the question is an explain question, a question wherein you have to explain the circumstances of correspondence between a company secretary and directors, then you would have to state the heading of 3 points and explain the same. Okay? Let's move on. Now, we have learned that the company secretary communicates, interacts, drafts correspondence with directors on a number of occasions. Now, while he is interacting with the directors, the secretary has to keep certain factors in mind. He has to take certain safety measures or precautions. He has to be very careful while wording his correspondence. He has to mind the tone of the language that he uses. So, we move on to the next subtopic, that is precautions to be taken by a company secretary while drafting correspondence with directors. Okay? Now, the first precaution says that whatever information is divulged, whatever information is given by the company secretary to the directors should be correct, should be reliable. And why is this? It's simply because based on this data, based on this information, Based on the material facts that the company secretary provides to the directors, they will plan the future course of action of the organization. The board will plan what the company needs to carry forward, what are the policies that they need to draft. So, the communication between the secretary and the directors should be reliable, should be authentic. The facts and figures provided should be 100% correct if the final decisions to be made by the directors is to be effective and efficient. The second precaution to be taken by the company secretary is that whatever information which is provided needs to be precise. It needs to be to the point. Whatever has been asked for, exactly the given information should be provided to them. And why is this so? It's because the board of directors or the members or the directors are people who have a lot of work to do. They don't have time to read long letters, lengthy letters, or to spend their time on reading irrelevant facts. Okay? So, the second precaution says that all the communication drafted by the secretary to the directors should be precise, should be to the point. Unnecessary information should not be given. Moving on to the third precaution. Over here, students, what does it say? The secretary needs to be quick, secretary needs to be prompt. Moreover, the secretary should be punctual. He should provide the information that is asked for by the directors as quickly as possible. Because in business, you must have heard, time means money. So, the directors need information at hand quickly so that they can take prompt action. They can engage in quick decision making. So, this point says the director needs to receive information promptly, quickly, on time from the company secretary. The fourth precaution that needs to be taken is that the secretary needs to use a polite tone in his letter. He needs to be very courteous because the secretary is subordinate to the directors. Directors hold a higher position in the hierarchy in the organization as compared to the company secretary. So, keeping that in mind, the secretary should be very respectful, use polite language, be courteous while drafting correspondence. Next, all the correspondence so drafted should be drafted in a manner that legal requirements are to be fulfilled. The secretary should ensure that all the correspondence that he drafts to the board of directors should be within the provisions, the purview of the Companies Act. And lastly, the secretary needs to be very tactful. He needs to be very patient and careful while providing the information that may be so desired by the directors. He has to provide the exact information that is asked for. So, what does this point say? The secretary needs to use tact and patience while drafting communication with the directors. Well, students, here again, you can be asked a 2-mark question or a 3-mark question on the safety measures, the safeguard or the care and caution or precautions or the factors to be considered by a company secretary while drafting correspondence to directors of the organization. Clear? Yes, students, let's move on now. The next subtopic is with respect to the removal, the disqualification, the instances that may require the director to vacate his position as a director from the organization. The first instance is wherein the given director or the director in question is of an unsound mind. If the director has become insane and a court order has been passed with this regards that as he is incompetent to contracts, as the director has or does not have the required ability to take prudent action, to take prompt and prudent decision, he is required to vacate his position as director. Secondly, in case the given director has been declared as insolvent or bankrupt, again as per a court order, he is required to leave his post as director in the organization. Continuing with the second point, we have the third point. It says, in case the decision of declaring the given or concerned director insolvent is still pending in court, again he can be asked to vacate his position as a director in the organization. The next instance is where the director has been ordered by a verdict of the court or the tribunal seeking his disqualification. Again, the director loses his position in the organization. And lastly, students, wherein the concerned director has failed repeatedly to pay any called money on the shares that he holds in the company for a period of 6 months or more from the due date of payment of that call. Okay, students? So, what does this slide present to you? The instances, the circumstances under which the company is justified in disqualifying a person from the post of director. Okay? Now, students, the chapter is on correspondence, right? Communication. And what form of communication has legal weightage? Of course, it is written communication. So, in this part of unit 2, again we have to study the letters which a company secretary needs to draft, okay, needs to write to directors. Now, before we go into learning the matter of the letters, let us again go through the format. We have the name and address of the company. Again, students, let me remind you, as in letters to members, here also we follow the block format, wherein all matter, all information in the letter is aligned to the left close to the margin, except for the name and address of the organization. So, you have the name and address of the company, leave a line, then you have the date on which the letter was written, followed by the reference number. Every outward post has a reference number. You leave a line again and you have the insider address. What is the insider address? Yes, it is the name and address of the director to whom the letter is being written to. Again, you leave a line, you have the salutation, that is dear sir, dear madam, or sir, madam, okay, followed by the subject. Now, what is the subject? Subject is what gives you the gist of the entire letter. At a glance, the director or the one referring to the letter will learn about what the content of the letter is. Okay, so you have the subject of the letter followed by the main part now. It's called the body, the details. It's a expansion, elaboration of the subject. Then you have, after the body is over, you have written the main part of the letter, you have the complimentary clause. Yours faithfully, or by order of the board, yours sincerely. Okay? Then, this letter is of no use, is of no relevance if it does not bear the signature of the one drafting it, of the person authority writing it. So, at the end you have the signature of the company secretary followed by enclosures. What are enclosures? Enclosures refer to the additional literature which is being sent along with the letter. Now students, this is the format for all the letters in this chapter. Between each piece of information, you have to leave a line. Similarly, in the body of the letter, a line is to be left between each paragraph. Another point to be noted, when it comes to details like the name and address of the company, name and address of the director, and the subject of the letter, this information may be provided to you in the question paper. So you have to be very careful. You got to be very cautious in what you are writing. Suppose they have given you a name of the company, say as the company secretary of Ajinkya Traders Limited, Verna, Goa. Draft a letter to a director informing him about his disqualification. Now, in the question paper, the name and address of the company has been quoted. But suppose you write the name and address that your teacher taught you in class, you are going to lose marks. So, you have to be very cautious. You have to write the information or the details which are given on the question paper. And you can very easily and comfortably score 4 marks on 4. Is it clear? I hope you have made a note of this in your books. Now let's move on. Let us see which are the letters that we have to draft in this subtopic. Okay. So first and foremost, we have a letter requesting a director to a letter requesting a person to join as director of the organization. The second one is a letter to a director regarding his attendance at a given board meeting. The third one is a letter requesting a director to disclose his personal interest in an agreement with some third party. And the last letter is a letter intimating a director about the termination of his directorship. Okay. So, these are the 4 letters that you have to study for your exams in this part of Unit 2. Let us move on to the first letter. As usual, as the format tells us, we begin with the name and address of the company, followed by the date on which the letter is being drafted. Then we leave a line, we have the reference number and the name and address of the concerned director. Okay? Followed by the salutation. Now, again, be very careful. Suppose in the question paper it is given as draft a letter to Mrs. Sunanda Naik, director of the company. And here you write, dear sir, is it correct? No. Again, you will lose a mark. So, be very cautious. Keep your heads on your shoulders while drafting the letter. So, after the salutation, that is dear sir, the next is the subject. Again, the subject mentioned here depends on what appears in the question paper. So, what is the subject here? What is this letter about? a request to a person to join as a director of the company. So, let us start with the first paragraph. It is a positive letter, no? It is something happy to be, something proud to be about. So, it starts on a positive note. So, how does the secretary begin this letter? I am pleased, positive word, right? Okay, I am pleased to inform you that the board of directors of this company has decided to invite you to accept the position as director of this company in place of Mr. Shera Singh, who has retired from the post of director with effect from 25th June 2020. So, what is the first paragraph talking about? That we are happy to have so and so person as director of the company. And how has this post of director been established? Because an existing director, Mr. Shera Singh, has retired. Moving on to the next paragraph. The secretary informs the person, Mr. Tiger Kapoor, that along with this letter, we are enclosing copies of the Memorandum of Association, the Articles of Association, and the annual report of the company for the last 5 years for reference. Next paragraph. You may convey your acceptance to the chairperson, Mr. Ramesh Sippi, immediately so that we can fix a meeting with him. And we end our letter, the complimentary close. Thanking you, yours sincerely, SD. SD stands for signed down, secretary. And we have enclosures. The next letter. Now, what is this letter about? I have highlighted it in the subject, leave of absence. That is, a given director was absent for a particular board meeting, and this letter is in this regard. So, again we start our letter as usual with the name and address of our company, followed by the date, reference number, inside the address of the director, salutation, subject, leave of absence. Now, the body of the letter. This is to bring to your notice that you have remained absent for the last board meeting held on 25th June 2020. So, what are the key points in the first paragraph? You are bringing it to the notice, you are making the director aware that he was absent during a particular board meeting, and you also mention the date. In the second paragraph, the secretary highlights the provisions under the Companies Act with respect to absence from a board meeting. So, what does the second paragraph say? As per the amendments made in section 167 of the Companies Act 2013, a leave of absence from all board meetings for a period of 12 months or more, even with the prior approval of the board, amounts to or results in the director vacating his office. Means you are telling the director that as per the provisions of the Companies Act, remaining absent from board meetings may result in disqualification. And the last paragraph, what does it say? So, please make it convenient to attend the next board meeting, which is to be held on 10 August 2020, and the letter is closed. Okay, students? So, the body of the letter follows a logical pattern. There is a flow of ideas which dwells from one paragraph to another. So, for exam, please ensure that you write your letters in a systematic manner. Ensure that your letters are drafted neatly. Let us move on to the third letter. What is this about? Read the subject. Yes. disclosure of personal interest in a contract. So, what is this letter about? Now, this letter is basically about the association of a given director in the organization with a contract with an organization, a third party with which our company is going to enter into a contract with. Okay? So, let us read the body of this letter. It has come to our notice from reliable sources that you have a personal interest in the agreement signed with Messrs. Batliwala Limited, Kolhapur. So, which is this third party that we are talking about? Yes, an organization in Kolhapur. Okay? And the director, Mr. Tiger Kapoor, has some links or personal interest in this given contract. Let us continue. As the matter, means as this topic, discussion of this topic is listed for consideration and discussion at the next board meeting, I would like to know if the said information is correct. In case you have any personal interest, you may state the actual nature, the extent of your association with this third party in the agreement before the board of directors in order to avoid breach. What is the meaning of to avoid breach? Means going against the rules under the Indian Companies Act. So, what does it say? Please inform us about the nature of your interest in this agreement in order to avoid breach of order under section 184, subsection 1, subsection 2 of the Indian Companies Act. And in the last sentence, the secretary is being very tactful. What is he telling the director? Your disclosure of information will be treated with strict confidence. Means you can trust us. You disclose the nature of your interest and it shall be treated with strict confidence. And we end this letter thanking you, yours sincerely, ST Secretary. Is anything being sent along with this letter? Is any document being attached to this letter? No. And therefore, after the signature, we do not have any enclosures. Done? Okay. Let's move on to the next letter, the last letter in this portion of Unit 2. What does the subject say? What is this letter about? Yes, the termination, the removal of a director from his position. So, as usual, we have a format: name and address of the company, the date, reference number, insider address, salutation, subject. Now, let us go through the body, the contents of the letter. This is to inform you that the chairman is in receipt of a memorandum signed by members as in shareholders, demanding for your removal from the post of director within 14 days on account of the misuse of the company's assets. So, what is the first paragraph about? What are the key terms that you have to mention here? The first thing is that the chairperson has received a request in writing from shareholders demanding for the disqualification of the given director. And the reason for his disqualification, what is the reason in this letter here? Yes, misuse of the assets belonging to the company. Let's read further. The second paragraph, a charge of misappropriation of the company's assets has been levelled against you, and the same is proved by the committee comprising of directors appointed for the same. So, what is the second paragraph telling Mr. Tiger Kapoor? It's telling him that, see, we had formed a subcommittee of directors to study this matter, to look into this charge, okay, and it has been found that you have indeed misappropriated the company's assets. The last paragraph, you are given an opportunity to express, to put forth your point of view during an extraordinary general meeting which is to be held or which is to be convened on the 25th of August 2020. So, what is the last paragraph telling the director? You are being given a chance. You can come and explain your point of view in this regard. If you have some justification to provide, you can do the same when during the extraordinary general meeting to be held on the 25th of August. An extraordinary general meeting again is an emergency meeting of shareholders. It is a meeting which is held between two annual general meetings. Okay? So, this is with the body of the letter, and you have the complementary clause, signature of the secretary, and what do you observe at the end? Enclosures. Yes, because along with this letter, the notice of the extraordinary general meeting is also being sent or has been attached. Okay, students. So, these are the 4 letters on correspondence with directors and the company secretary. For the format of the letter, that is the name and address, date, reference number, inside address, salutation, subject, the complementary clause, signature, enclosures, you will be awarded 1 mark, and the balance 3 marks are allotted to the body, the gist of the letter. So, on a whole, letters appear for 4 marks. And as mentioned earlier, students, you have to be very cautious with respect to writing the name and address of the company or the name and address of the directors and the subject of the letter. If you keep these points in mind, nothing can stop you from getting full marks, that is 4 on 4. Well, students, we come to a close to this class, and I leave you with this quote: believe in yourself and all that you are. Know